Hey y'all, today we are making a delicious, tender, and very flavorful chuck roast, but we're going to be stewing this Jamaican style with some delicious island inspired spices that I'm sure you have, and they're very easy to get, but the taste is phenomenal. You don't want to miss this recipe because it is just so good. Now, first I'm going to start out by spraying my chuck roast with some olive oil. I have cut it into chunks, and this is a 2.5-pound chuck roast that I put into some larger pieces. For my salt in this recipe, I'm going to be using some Lowry's, okay? Y'all know we love a little seasoned salt, okay? And you just use that to taste as per how much salt that you like. To give everything a nice color, I'm going to be stewing it with a little bit of browning, and I'm only using about half of a teaspoon. This should be easily found in any Caribbean grocery store. I've even seen it in Walmart before. For some flavor, some of that W sauce, because you know nobody knows how to pronounce that correctly, okay? And I'm putting in about 2 teaspoons. Some chopped onion, but you could also use some minced onion, and that's about 1 tablespoon. For some all-purpose seasoning, I'm going to be throwing in some of this original Mrs.Dash. I think it has a nice flavor that just complements everything, and I'm going to be using about a teaspoon. Y'all know we got to use some garlic powder, okay? Just about 1 teaspoon is good. And one of my favorite seasonings so far is this Sazon Tropical. I have just been loving this seasoning blend, y'all. And I'm using about 2 teaspoons. But y'all can see this bottle is like at the end of its life. This is some Jamaican all-purpose seasoning. This is mostly paprika, a little pimento, some thyme, garlic, as well as some white pepper. And for some more herbs, I'm using some rosemary, some basil, a little thyme, and some Maggi powder. And I'm using some of my green seasoning as well. I have a recipe for how I make that on my channel, and I'll put it in the little eye. I'm going to mix all of these seasonings up. Guys, if your meat does not look like this, okay, if your meat don't look like this, you're not seasoning it right, okay, honey. It has to look like there is flavor on it. Once you mix all the seasoning in, allow this to marinate for about 30 minutes at room temperature. You can do it overnight, but I'm not taking that time today. I'm also using some scallions, some onions, scotch bonnet, thyme, pimento, garlic, and peppers for my fresh seasonings as well. Once my beef has properly marinated, I went in and I put a little bit of cooking oil on the bottom of my cast iron. I used just about 2 tablespoons, and my cast iron is nice and hot. I'm going to go in and I'm going to put the meat down, and I'm going to allow it to just cook for about 4 minutes without turning it on medium-high heat because I want the color to begin to develop. Now guys, I really wanted some oxtail when I was doing this recipe, but when I was at the stores, I could not find oxtail that was lower than $10 a pound. Can you believe they are trying to sell oxtail for even $13 a pound? Honey, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. If y'all don't know, I am a teacher, and you know we ain't balling like that right now. So today we using this chuck roast, and you gonna get more meat anyway, okay? So once I've allowed it to brown for in total about 8 minutes, I'm going to go in and put in the allspice berries. I like to put those at the bottom so they'll kind of toast in the oil that's been released. And then I'm adding all of the fresh ingredients except the scotch bonnet. I actually like to put that in a little bit later because I don't want it to become too spicy. If you don't want any spice, you can cut the scotch bonnet in half, leaving out the seeds, or you can just leave it out entirely, but I think it is necessary. I'm going to allow this to cook for about 10 minutes undisturbed because I want the meat to release its own broth and its own juices. Do you see all that? All of that broth came out of the meat and the veggies alone. I'm going to put in a tomato. I'm going to stir that in, and at this point, that's when I'm going to add a little bit of ketchup. I like to add about 3 tablespoons just for a little flavor. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. And I'm using the same bowl I marinated the beef in, and I'm going to put in about 3 cups of water. Of course, I want to get all the seasonings that I left behind. I'm now going to stir everything up, and at this point, I'll be putting the scotch bonnet back in and letting this just stew on low This is about a 2 on an electric stove, and I'm going to allow this to cook undisturbed for about an hour and a half. After an hour and a half, my meat is soft, but it's not fully done. At this point, you can taste it for a little bit of seasoning, and you can see there's a lot of gravy around this meat, which I like, but I actually want my gravy to be a little bit less than this. So I'm going to go in with 3 carrots. I have cut these carrots up into about 1-inch pieces, and I'm going to slide them in. And then I also off camera added about 1 potato that I just cut into larger chunks about the same size as the carrot. And I'm now going to allow this to cook for about 30 to 45 minutes. You don't want to add this in at the beginning, because if you do, they're going to become mush and they're totally going to disintegrate. But I like to add them because the potato is going to soak up that gravy and that flavor and that deliciousness, and the carrot imparts a nice sweetness into the gravy. You want to cover this back up and just let this cook. Once it has been about 40 minutes, I go in and I just test the tenderness of my beef and my vegetables. And guys, woo hoo hoo, y'all see it. Okay, the camera's not lying. You can see how tender this meat is. I can even just use my spoon and I can start pulling it apart. I checked my carrots. They were soft. The potatoes were perfectly cooked. The only thing I added in more to this was a little bit more seasoning salt. Let me show you what I served this beef with. I served it with some Instant Pot coconut rice and peas, as well as some soul food kale. I'm going to be showing you how I made those 2 recipes in an upcoming video. So please go ahead and subscribe and turn on the bell so that you don't miss that. Always remember that I love you and God loves you the most, and share this meal with someone that you love. I'll see you next time, and goodbye.